So the next feature going through the system we're going to look at is to start going through some of the menus here, explain what they are. You have your settings menu. With this gives you some really valuable information. It tells you the serial number of the system, not necessarily when the system was built, but when the software was released. So you can see this one here is fairly current, February the 3rd, 2016. Our Olex serial number, and how much hard drive space we have free. S63 user permit, that is basically for charts, navigational charts. And then you can see here I have a dealer demo. Most systems would have normal installation plus additional software keys such as ITI is trawl, HT is hardness, AIS is AIS systems, SB is water currents. So basically you go in here and you set up the size of your ship, the length, the width, where the GPS antenna is located, where the transducer is located, the depth of the transducer. This is very important because you may be sharing data from a 200-foot vessel to a small 25-foot vessel. So it is important if you want to be the most accurate as possible. Your time offset here, basically that's just an offset you put in, -3, -4 here on the East Coast, based on daylight savings time. That number, if that's not set correct, that's not a problem. It doesn't affect it. The system uses GMT time, so that's not a problem at all. Correction of autopilot lag, if you connect to an autopilot, you can put this in there and it will anticipate an upcoming turn. So 10 seconds before it gets to the waypoint, it will start making the turn onto the next waypoint. GPS position lag, again, this is for some of the larger systems, multi-beam in particular. It's just there's usually a lag between the time the data is acquired from the GPS and the time it outputs the actual data on its data outputs. Seafloor calculation, optimal is made for when you're using the Olex internal filters. It will try to filter out bad data. Some sounders are a little bit problematic with their outputs. So when you have some sounders that don't output data at a specified rate, or something seems a bit abnormal with them, you have another option that you can use always, so it will take that data and bypass Olex's internal filter. We always like to try optimal first, but you can do that. The other feature is stopped. So if it's really rough that day, you don't want to mess up your seafloor bottom, you can click the stopped button. Most of these menus here, it's going to be set up by the installer. So once it's done, you usually don't have to go in there for anything, other than maybe stopping it here when it's a really rough day, so that you can leave your sounder on. A lot of the stuff here, basically it's preferences, your course line. If you see the dotted line on the screen here, it's in, I'm going to take the vector off here for the heading, but you can see the course line here. It's basically set up to be 10 minutes ahead, so you could have 3 minutes ahead, 1 hour ahead. I'll zoom out here. So it gives you kind of like an ETA, so you know where you're going to be in an hour. Or you can set it to a distance scale, say 1 nautical mile, or you can go and say 0.3 or 0.1. It's really just your own preference. Very easy to switch between different units of measure. So right now I'm looking at fathoms. If you want to switch it to meters, very easy, and feet, very easy. So as you can see, the digital chart numbers in the background from Chart World or your local ENC provider, you can see those numbers change as you adjust the units of measure. So language, many different languages. You can see there's a total of about 12. Good thing is if you accidentally click on one that you don't recognize, usually your language or the languages are in their native tongue. So English, there's Norwegian, Spanish. So very easy just to go click back and choose it. Next menu you have is the vector chart menu, and I'm just going to shut off a few things. So there's an example of a vector chart, some contour lines. What you can do, you can go in and shut off text and names, depths and elevations, pipeline cables if you had that, restricted areas, paired routes, borders, depth contours on or off, depth areas, which are like the blues. We usually, it's your own preference. I prefer them off, and then you can see what areas are already mapped with seafloor. And light and light sectors, that type of thing. So other than that, you have a continuous range arrow, which shows you range and bearing to the cursor at all times. That can be shut off as well. Okay. Grid lines for lat long, you can turn those on or off. Lorentz C, if you use Lorentz C, so you want the 5930 chain, you can turn those on, and you can put corrections in there as well, X, Y, and Z. So very easy to configure that. Again, it's all user preference, what they'd like to have. And I guess that wraps up for the main part of the menus. So we'll be talking a little more about some of the other menus here, the private plotter data, in the next module.